The Microvellum Library Designer utility is an extremely powerful tool that I think it's one of the main examples of what makes Microvellum so unique. Anyone can develop a program to design products and, allow you to save them to a catalog or a library. But not very many people or not many other options out there that can provide you a tool where you can, maintain all of those saved products. I've happened to work in a millwork shop long enough in my past. I know how many special little products kind of get accumulated over the years. Get saved back over the months and years. You start ending up with all these little products. So this utility can actually analyze all of those library products, including those that you've saved as a one-off, and it'll digest them into this user interface here, so where you can then perform all kinds of tasks. So another reason I believe this tool and Microvellum in general is so unique is, you don't have to keep your library as it is. If you really want to give yourself a competitive advantage from, say, the cabinet shop around the corner, take some time and enhance your library. There are unlimited ways you can streamline the data to make the manufacturing process quicker down the line. So something to keep in mind as you learn more about what this tool can do. But okay, anyway, so let's get into some of the library designer tips, the tricks, and even some warnings, some things to watch out for. Maybe there's some little details that perhaps you didn't realize at first when you first started using this. So here I've drilled down into a 3-drawer base. I'm looking at the subassembly entries here, and you can kind of, as you click around, you can kind of start to see differences. Sometimes when I'm looking at a product, I can start to pick up things or see things that weren't necessarily obvious at first. And by selecting all 3 things at once here, if you do like that, so I'm looking at these drawer fronts, by selecting them all, you can immediately see what attributes are similar, and what things are not similar. So when you click them all, only the like things will appear. So if you start to turn off one like that, so as I holding down the control key here, I can see that everything's the same except for the height formula, the comments, and the Z origin, and the bay position, which that makes sense. And I can compare these two, same thing. I can look at my drawer boxes, same thing. So sometimes this can be really useful information when you're trying to decide how to attack, your whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And this trick works for everything: parts, prompts, subassemblies, whatever it may be. So like here you can highlight multiple products, and I can see right away that these 3 cabinets have the same tabs, but they have a different calculator list, which again that makes sense. So here I've gone into a prompt view. I'm just looking through all the prompts in the library. And as I go through this, sometimes you see things and you wonder, why are these different? This is the adjustable shelf line board quantity. This should be the same, but then as I'm going back and forth, I'm noticing, oh, they're on a different tab. So that's all it took. Just because, and that's just how the software is designed. Anything that's different, it's going to be, it's going to be considered a different prompt. I believe the color is, even though see how it's different, I'm pretty sure that is omitted. So that doesn't enter into it, but everything else will. So that's why it's important when you're changing something to either use find and replace or come into this prompt view and make sure that you catch all of the prompts that you want to edit, not just say you drilled into adjustable and fixed shelves, and changed it in that subassembly. You would have missed all these other subassemblies. Another thing to be aware of is you'll notice some of these prompts do not have underscores, and whereas some do. And that may be a little bit of a head scratcher, but as to why that is, both of them will work. In the older libraries, we would frequently use underscores. For example, FE scribe, you see you've got an underscore. And slowly as formulas are being rewritten over the years or becoming, going back, and we're slowly kind of weeding those out or sort of removing them. So a lot of times when I see an underscore, that's probably a formula. It tells me that's probably a formula that hasn't been looked at in quite some time. This is also important to be aware of. I've gotten into trouble, where you come in here and you see FE scribe and you're looking at all these, or maybe I'm making some kind of an edit, and I always think to check the underscore one, because if you notice the way it alphabetizes, they're not next to each other, so it's easy to miss. So I always look for, once I'm done here, I'll go scroll up or down and see if the FE underscore scribe is also present, and sure enough it is. A lot of times, if I'm making an edit, I'll take the time and remove the underscores, but that's just kind of right now something to be aware of. So I mentioned how you can select with Control to pick any number of products. You can use Shift. This is similar to Windows Explorer. A little trick you can do if you're selecting in multiple categories, and so you pick those, and then I come in here and I pick this. If you hold down Control and Shift, you can do this and it'll select those and then keep those unselected. So then you can come in and pick Control click and then Control Shift click. So this allows you to select multiple products or subassemblies or whatever it is you're working on in an efficient manner. And speaking of selecting things, I believe this topic was brought up in some of the other videos on Library Designer on the exercises, but I will mention it again here because it's very important. When you are checking and unchecking, and like I'm doing right here, you are sort of severing the connection or the association with all the other, in this case, products. So very important to remember, the program does not know when you're done unchecking. So if I made these selections, came up here and started making some changes immediately, the tool is going to think it's going to still apply them all. So what you have to do is once you're done, you will have to click to another prompt. You do your clicking, click here, click back to get it to refresh, and then now it's done. The program knows that you're done. Hopefully, maybe someday we can get ourselves a little button here that says, yes, I'm done, or an OK button. But in the meantime, just be aware of that little trick. We've seen some people have some difficulty with that. And if you have more questions on the why and what that looks like, go ahead and view some of the other videos that we have on Library Designer where we get into that topic in a little bit more detail. The next bullet point I wanted to talk about is, sometimes, even though this is an amazing tool, as I said earlier, actually sometimes it's not the fastest way to edit something, especially if you're just dealing with one product or a small handful of products. There are times where just opening up that single cut file, the spreadsheet interface from Database Viewer, and then making the changes is really the best way. So, if you do that, you'll have to rebuild this Library Designer database, whenever an outside change occurs. So, for example, if I have to add 20 prompts from one cabinet to another, well, maybe Library Designer isn't the tool of choice. Now, if you had to add 20 prompts to 50 cabinets or more, well, then maybe it is. You just kind of have to know what your options are. When I kind of say the old-fashioned way, what I mean by is, coming in this way here, opening up your product, looking at the prompts, and I've had to do this numerous times where I'll come in here and maybe I'm adding like all these pricing ones. And so, or maybe I want to delete them or whatever. It is pretty quick to just go like this. Notice I didn't do all the rows, I just did these cells. Insert, shift down, and then paste in my new content, and then going like this and saying insert, define name from selection, right? And that'll define them all. So a lot of times that is actually quicker to do. But just know that as soon as you do that and you click OK and save, I'm going to hit no. This product now is sort of out of phase or out of sync with your Library Designer database. So you'll want to come in here and send it to Library Designer to update it. So this is a nice little tool here that not everyone is aware of. You can either do that, or if you've got a whole bunch of changes, multiple products, I would just delete your Library Designer database and build a new one. It only takes a few minutes, and then you're good to go. The other thing to keep in mind for now, this tool is only for your library, right? Your template products, and it will not edit any of your products that are currently in an existing project. However, I would like to see that someday, maybe in the future. But for now, all we can do is once you change your library, you can come in here, highlight a bunch of products, and you can use this rebuild selected products from the library. So what that will do is go and it'll find a match based on the description of the product and swap out, all of the library data. It'll overwrite everything except, so let me just show you here, anything in the cut parts, hardware, subassemblies, prompts, it will have to leave intact because, of course, you would lose all of your width, height, depth, and your finished end choices. So that it leaves, but all of the other content, it should update from the template. One little warning here I'd like to pass on, and it has to do with how Library Designer, when it scans and analyzes all of the spreadsheet data, it really helps to be able to kind of think like a computer thinks, if you will. So whenever you are working on the spreadsheet and you save and close a product or subassembly spreadsheet, I always kind of ask myself, this one simple question. For whatever it is I just did, can Library Designer see what I'm saving? And this is especially true on this worksheet right here with the prompt. So I know that when Microvellum scans this product and it's populating that Library Designer, it starts here at row 1, gets the prompt, kind of works its way down, and then you'll notice we have these spacers here, this blank row, okay? It's really, the first blank row is critical to know what that means. Anything above this row is always visible, so it's a visible prompt. So these are going to have, they're on those tabs. You can see they all have a tab index, and they can be hidden and unhidden, this guy right here, and they have control types. So, but anything below that first blank is always going to be just an invisible calculating prompt. So, but if for some reason I ended up with 2 blank rows, the code is, in order to get maximum performance, if it has a second, as soon as it sees the second blank row, it thinks it's done. And so you will lose everything below it. So that's like a big rule 101 here. Don't ever have a double blank in here or more than one blank row. You always want to keep it like that. Another snafu I've seen, especially on some of the older libraries or some of the custom libraries, is people will put a lookup table, whatever the content is, and which is fine to have a lookup table, but a library designer is going to think that that's a prompt, and it's just going to get all confused what to do. So if you want to use lookup tables, what we recommend is you do something like what we've done in some of these subassemblies, is you have just a whole new worksheet called lookup tables, and this you can put whatever you want in here and it won't hurt library designer or anything. You won't be able to access it with library designer, but that's generally okay, no big deal. But this is just a much safer place to put your lookup table data instead of just some random location here on the prompts worksheet. Okay, so since we're on the topic of warnings, the next warning has to do with machine tokens. So as you can see, here is your parts, and you have the information, and then here we have our tokens. So token 1, 9 parameters, and then token 2, 9 parameters, and just repeats on and on. And again, you have to think like a computer. It's going to start on the column on the left. It's going to work its way to the right. So as soon as the program comes, if I do like this and just say delete some cells, so it's going to hit this blank, machine token slot 5, and it's going to think it's done. And so you only have 4 tokens. It will ignore everything to the right. So token 6 and on are going to be toast. Are going to be in your library designer, and it's going to really cause a lot of problems for you. And when it goes and rebuilds the updated data, you're going to potentially lose a lot of the spreadsheet data. So you never ever want to have a blank column unless that is really the last token. The other thing that library designer has a bit of heartburn over, and you're going to see this more in older libraries like version 40, or basically older than 40, we would put almost like a placeholder. I've seen library developers, well, I used to do this too years ago. You would just put like a 0. I'm just going to pretend that, this is what's going on. And then, you would have your tokens would continue on. And the reason that would be done, or maybe they would do it again, they would have 2 slots, 2 placeholders, okay? And the reason that would be done is so that maybe you wanted to keep these in alignment for some reason. You didn't want to get them all off kilter, because it is kind of nice having all of the same tokens here kind of all together, right? So here's all of your left, here's all of your right. That's nice. So if for some reason these got shifted, we would put a placeholder in there to kind of get them back in alignment. Well, now in the days of library designer, this is a big no-no because as the program is looking, it's going to think that's a token with these parameters, and then it's going to see this as the same exact token. So when library designer was developed, the developer never in a million years would ever think you would have the same exact machine token on the same part. And if you think about that, that makes sense. You would never do a machining operation, the same exact machining operation with all the same parameters 2 times in a row. So it causes lots of problems. And I believe we have a special video on the help site that deals with this specific issue and how to deal with it. There's a kind of a workflow that I developed that allows you to clean these out one by one. So you can contact Microvellum for more help if you are upgrading an older library maybe that has that condition in there. There is a way to remedy that, but you definitely don't want to develop new data where you've got this scenario. So here I rolled back to a very old or older library and wanted to show you that you can import, when you click add library, it will let you select more than one library, which can sometimes have some advantages. I don't recommend this if you are just new to Library Designer and getting started. It does add a little bit more of complexity to things, but it will do it. And so maybe you have a version 45 and a version 44 that you're kind of using both at the same time, and you want to make changes simultaneously to both of them. As you're clicking in, let's find something here. So you're clicking around. Notice here it says, well, this prompt is affecting this library. So that's library 44. And if you keep scrolling down, you'll probably find some. They're now version 45. So this is basically telling me, all right, well, this prompt is occurring in all these products spanning across 2 different libraries. So whatever change you make here, it'll affect both libraries. So that feature is supported. So if you are ever unsure or nervous about using this tool, you always want to make a backup of your factory before committing the changes, especially if you're doing something different for the first time and you want to make sure it's going to work. So the quickest way, I usually back up. You just browse. If you're not on a server, you can just find this factory database right there, and you just copy and paste, and there you have a backup. And then I would rename this to maybe it's today's date or something, and then you can experiment and try different things, and you'll at least have a way to roll back if you need to. You can also go into the Database Explorer and pull your files out onto disk by just dragging them out of here, and there's videos on help site as well on how to do that. But I usually keep kind of a backup version of all of my products on the C drive somewhere. So hopefully this tips and trick was you learned something new maybe you didn't know. Be sure and check out some more videos where we actually go through like a live exercise or I guess a sample exercise. There's find and replace, updating categories, moving prompts around, a lot of different things. I'm sure that the list will grow over time as we come across different scenarios that we want to help you out with. And again, if you have any questions on this tool, don't hesitate to comment on this article below. Thanks.